Well, you got data from our friends over at the Sentinel that you're not going to get anywhere else. And happy to have on, as always, the CEO of the Kansas Policy Institute. Dave Trabert is here on KCMO 95.7 FM. Set that preset on the radio dial. And the headline they dropped yesterday, new database shows extent of gender-affirming treatment in Kansas and nationwide, courtesy of the national policy group Do Not Harm. So, Dave, what do these numbers look like in the state of Kansas?
Well, good morning, Pete. Thanks for having me. The database shows that since 2019, 93 juveniles in Kansas have received some form of what's called gender-affirming care. Some of that surgery, some of that is prescriptions for puberty blockers and so forth. But it shows how many, it shows, and it has it broken down by which hospital provides those services.
Wow, I see it here. And what stood out to me as well is the billing that these hospitals make from these surgeries. So, for instance, you guys right here, St. Luke's South Surgery Center in Overland Park has had 7 surgery patients at a total billing of $156,000. I mean, you do that math, that is what, well over 20 grand per surgery that these hospitals are making. Now, I know it's not a huge number. I know this isn't funding the hospital, but there clearly is a lot of profit to be had here on these surgeries for these hospitals.
Well, sure, and the issue that, and the reason we put this out there, Pete, is it's twofold. There are, unbelievably, there are some people, and I've had this personal experience when you talk about just with friends about whether something is should happen. Some people say, no, that's not happening. That can't be true. It's just one of those conspiracy theories. Well, here's a database where people have researched hospital records and proven that it's happening. The other issue is whether legally it should be allowed. And I think it raises a legitimate question where, parents can't override state law on smoking or drinking or driving a car underage. But apparently, in this case, it's allowed. And if a child doesn't have judgment to smoke or drink, then how do they have judgment to know that they really do want to change their gender?
Wait, so
and that's
are
the
they,
question that people have.
Are they overriding state law right now?
That's a legal opinion that I couldn't touch. I don't know that that's the case. The issue that we hear from readers is how is this legal to happen? I don't know that it's illegal, but the question is, how can it be legal for this to happen when the law says children don't have the judgment to be able to smoke or drink under a certain age?
Well, as I recall, the House in Topeka tried to override Laura Kelly's veto of gender transitioning for children, right? This is about the kids. I mean, most people are like, hey, if you're an adult, I wouldn't want you to. If I was a friend or a family member, I probably would try to have a conversation with you, but I don't think that's the government's role. But with kids, like you say, their brains aren't developed. We don't let them smoke. We don't let them drive cars. It's really focusing on the children when it comes to this issue. But the House did not have the votes to override Laura Kelly's veto. So technically, as I understand it, this stuff is still all legal in the state of Kansas. It's just how much is it actually happening?
Right. That's the issue. I don't believe there's any laws being violated here. The question is whether it should be legal for this to occur, given other laws on the books indicating that juveniles don't have judgment ability to do something that's like smoking and drinking.
Yeah. So now, what else, when you look at these numbers, I know you also had in this piece the Missouri numbers, which are interesting as well. Missouri has 3 major children's hospitals, obviously more patients than Kansas, just more people, 182 total, 44 surgery patients, 34 of these patients are being treated at Children's Mercy in Kansas City, Missouri. So that should be noted as well. But what else did you take out of this?
One of the things that was interesting is the sort of sudden uptick in 2022, because the databases go back to 2019, and so you can see what happened each year, and you see that in 2022 and 2023 there were some spikes.
Oh yeah,
and not just in Kansas, not just in Kansas. So one question is, what's causing the spike? If it was just something natural, you would think that it would be a progression, maybe constantly building. But when spikes occur, it raises a question of, was there anything that prompted that? We're doing some other research on cell phone policies in schools, and there's a researcher named Jonathan Haidt that has found some remarkable spikes in mental health issues that started really in the early 2010s. And he relates some of that to when smartphones became prevalent among teenagers, that they got exposed to more things. And so, and with that came spikes in mental health issues. You start looking in the middle 2010s, and that's when some school districts really started ramping up their diversity, equity, inclusion, critical race theory, and started bringing in gender issues. So it raises the question, is some of this being caused by, or at least prompted by, some things that our school systems are doing? I don't know, but it just raises a question, I think, that merits further study when you see spikes in certain activity.
Well, it's in large part, nature versus nurture conversation, right? Is in part what you're talking about here, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Dave Trabert, CEO of the Kansas Policy Institute, is here. This article is on the Sentinel website. You can find it. You can read it for yourself, sentinelksmo.org. And you're right. When I see a spike, when you look at these numbers of total prescriptions written, in 2019, that number was about 75. It was under 50 in 20 and 21, and it spikes to 300 in 2022. That's not nature at work, Dave. I don't know how anybody could say that's just nature doing its thing when you look at those massive increases.
Agreed.
Wow. Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on this, and I know you guys are going to be on it at the Sentinel. Anything else that we've missed in this conversation that you want to make sure the listener knows?
No, I think that covers it.
Good as always. Hey, Dave, keep up the great work. We appreciate you being here on KCMO Talk Radio.
Thanks, Pete.